Life is full of surprises. And now, as my wife and I were getting ready to go to her mother Margaret's country house, I never expected this trip to change my life. Kate, my dear spouse, at the last moment remembered some urgent things at work. You know, the kind that always happen at the wrong time. "Alex, honey, I can't go," she said, looking at me guiltily. "You understand work?" Of course I understood. Being a lawyer at a big firm, Kate was constantly busy. Sometimes it seemed to me that she was married to her job, and I was just an appendage to it. But I didn't complain because I knew she loved me. I just sometimes wished for more attention. "Don't worry, dear," I replied, smiling. "I can go instead of you. I'll help your mom close up the dacha for winter. I'll take a break from the city bustle at the same time." Kate beamed. "You're a real treasure, Alex. Mom will be so happy, thank you." She pecked me on the cheek and ran off to get ready for work. And I started packing, anticipating a quiet weekend in nature. If only I knew what awaited me. When I arrived to pick up Margaret, she was already waiting for me at the entrance. Despite her age, my mother-in-law looked stunning. Slender, elegant, with sparkling eyes, she could give many young women a run for their money. "Alex, darling, thank you for agreeing to come with me," she said, hugging me. "I really didn't want to go alone." "No need to thank me, Margaret," I smiled. "I'm happy to help. Besides, I've been wanting to spend some time in nature for a while." We loaded our things into the car and set off. A long road and, as it turned out, many surprises awaited us. The trip to the dacha took several hours. Margaret and I passed the time in conversation. She told funny stories from Kate's childhood, and I shared my memories. It turned out we had a lot in common. We loved the same books, movies, music. Who would have thought that my mother-in-law was a rock fan? "You know, Alex, I'm glad you became part of our family," Margaret said suddenly, smiling softly. "Kate is very lucky to have you." I felt myself blushing. "Thank you, Margaret. I'm lucky to have Kate, too. And you," she laughed. "Oh, stop it. I've been telling you for a long time to call me Mom, or at least Maggie." "Okay, Mom," I grinned. Silence hung between us, but it wasn't awkward, rather cozy and warm. I felt that we had become closer in these few hours than in all the years of my marriage to Kate. When we arrived at the dacha, it was already evening. Margaret suggested we move our things in and go to bed right away, so we could start work in the morning. I agreed, feeling tired after the long drive. "Good night, Alex," Margaret said, kissing me on the cheek. "See you in the morning." I smiled and went to my room. As I fell asleep, I thought about how unpredictable life is. Here you are, going to the country house with your mother-in-law, and you end up finding a kindred spirit in her. Funny, isn't it? The morning greeted us with bright sun and birdsong. Idyllic, really. After breakfast, Margaret and I got to work. We needed to clean up the garden, close the windows, and bring the furniture into the house. I won't say it was easy, but in the company of my charming mother-in-law, any work was a joy. "Alex, dear, could you hand me those garden shears?" Margaret asked, pointing to the tool. I walked over to her and handed her the shears. Our hands touched, and I suddenly felt an electric shock. Margaret seemed to feel it too. She looked at me in a special way, and I couldn't help but admire her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly and turned away. We continued working, but now there was tension between us. Not awkward, but kind of exciting. I tried not to think about it and focus on the job. By evening, we had managed all the tasks. Tired but satisfied, we sat on the veranda and drank tea. The sun was setting, coloring the sky in pink and orange hues. "What a beauty," Margaret admired, looking at the sunset. "Not like in the city." "Yes, it's very calm and peaceful here," I agreed. "You know, I'm glad we came here together," Margaret said, turning to me. "I've been wanting to spend some time alone with you for a while now." Her words sent shivers down my spine. What did she mean? Could it be? No, it couldn't be. She's my wife's mother. "I'm glad too," I replied, trying not to betray my agitation. "We did a great job today." Margaret smiled. "That too. But I wasn't just talking about work." She got up and went into the house, leaving me in turmoil. What's going on? Did I misunderstand everything? Or is there really something between us? My thoughts were confused, and my heart was pounding wildly. What to do next? After dinner, Margaret and I decided to light a fire in the fireplace. The evening was cool, and warmth and coziness were just what we needed. We sat on the soft rug sipping wine and watching the play of the flames. "Tell me about yourself, Alex," Margaret suddenly asked. "What are your hobbies? What do you dream about?" I thought for a moment. Usually I don't like talking about myself, but with her I wanted to share everything. I love to read, especially science fiction and adventures, and I like to play the guitar, although I rarely do it. I dream of taking a trip around the world someday. Margaret listened to me attentively, without interrupting. "That's wonderful, Alex. You have such interesting hobbies. It's a pity we haven't talked about this before." "And what are your hobbies?" I asked, trying to change the subject. Margaret smiled. "Oh, I have many. I love to paint. I do yoga. Sometimes I write poetry. But most of all, I like to travel. I've been around half the world, you know." I was impressed. My mother-in-law turned out to be a real adventurer. We talked for a long time about travel, books, art. I felt us getting closer and closer. At some point, Margaret put her hand on my knee. It was so unexpected that I flinched. She looked into my eyes, and I saw something there that I hadn't noticed before. Desire, passion, tenderness. "Alex," she whispered, leaning towards me, I want you." My brain shut off. All thoughts of Kate, of how wrong this was, evaporated. There was only all-consuming desire left. I pulled Margaret to me and kissed her. Her lips were soft and sweet, like a ripe cherry. We kissed more and more passionately, hands roaming each other's bodies. Clothes flew to the floor, and now we were lying naked on the rug, entwined in an embrace. I covered her entire body with kisses, and Margaret whispered my name in supreme bliss. It was a night of passion and pleasure. We made love as if it were the last time, without thinking about the consequences. Only here and now mattered. Falling asleep next to Margaret, I realized that my life would never be the same. But I had no regrets. In the morning, I woke up alone in bed. For a moment, it seemed to me that everything that had happened was just a dream. But no, there was her dress on the floor. There were glasses with the remains of wine. It was real. I found Margaret in the kitchen. She was making breakfast and looked stunning in just my shirt. When I walked in, she smiled and kissed me. "Good morning, darling," she said. "Good morning," I replied, hugging her. "You're beautiful." We had breakfast, chatting about little things and laughing. It seemed that nothing had changed, but we both knew that wasn't true. "Alex," Margaret said suddenly, serious, "what happened last night? I don't regret it, but it has to stay between us. For Kate's sake." I nodded. "Of course, it will be our secret." We packed our things and drove home. The whole way we were silent, lost in our thoughts. I thought about Kate, about our marriage, about how I could have done this to her. But at the same time, I couldn't get the image of Margaret out of my head, her touches, her kisses. Kate greeted us at home. She looked tired but satisfied. "How was your trip?" she asked, kissing me. I felt a pang of guilt. "Good," I replied, trying not to look at Margaret. "We did everything. The dacha is ready for winter." Life returned to its usual course. Kate and I went to work, met with friends, did household chores. But every time I saw Margaret, there was a spark between us. We exchanged secret glances, accidentally touched each other. It was like a drug, like a forbidden fruit. I knew I was playing with fire, that if Kate found out, it would destroy our family. But I couldn't stop. Margaret had bewitched me, and I was willing to risk everything for her. One day, Kate and I went to her birthday party. All evening, I tried to stay away from Margaret, but at one point we were alone on the balcony. "I missed you," she whispered, pressing against me. "Me too," I replied, and kissed her. We kissed passionately, forgetting about caution. And then I heard the sound of breaking dishes. Turning around, I saw Kate. She was standing in the balcony doorway, having dropped a glass of champagne. Her face was whiter than chalk, and there were tears in her eyes. How could you?" she whispered. "Mom, Alex, how?" I pulled away from Margaret, feeling the ground slipping from under my feet. All my fears had come true in an instant. Our secret was out, and now nothing would ever be the same. "Kate, honey, I'll explain everything," Margaret began, but Kate didn't let her finish. "No, don't explain anything. I saw it with my own eyes," she screamed. Guests began to turn around at the noise. Kate ran out of the apartment, sobbing. I rushed after her, trying to catch up, to explain, but she didn't want to listen to me. "Go away, Alex! I don't want to see you! You both betrayed me!" she shouted, choking on tears. I stood in the middle of the street, watching my wife drive away in a taxi. I couldn't wrap my head around how one wrong step had led to the collapse of my entire life. What to do now? How to live on? The next few days turned into hell. Kate filed for divorce, not wanting to see or hear me. She wouldn't even let me get my things from our apartment. Friends and family looked at me with condemnation and contempt. I became an outcast. The only person who supported me was Margaret. "Alex, darling, we'll get through this," she said, hugging me. "The main thing is that we love each other. Nothing else matters." But it didn't get any easier. I lost my wife, my friends, my respect, all because of one mistake, one weakness, and now I had to pay the price. After a few months, Margaret and I decided to move to another city, to start a new life. To everyone, we were just a couple who decided to be together despite the age difference. No one knew our story, our secret. And although the pain of losing Kate didn't subside, I found solace in Margaret's arms, in her love and understanding. Perhaps our story began wrongly, but I believed that we still had a chance at happiness, even if at such a high price. Life is a strange thing. You never know where the choices you make will lead you. My road led me to Margaret, and now all I had to do was follow it, no matter what. Maybe at the end, the round-the-world trip I've always dreamed of awaits us. Only now, together with the woman I love. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.